Now that user interface is ready for our app, what you might want to do is jump into the viewcontroller.swift. Now you could have already got into the same scenario like two half screen. One is having a storyboard and one is having a view controller, but I don't have that much of screen out there to work on with. You can simply click on this icon and move on to the view controller. I hope everyone is by far now is habitual of how to get into a way around in this Xcode. So what do we need out there is really simple. First of all, we need a variable that says time. And first of all, I would like to discuss a concept. A lot of people ask me at this point that we want to loop into some function which just update on every second. Now here is the mistake. You do not want a loop. You need a function that should be called on every 1 second. Why we need a loop? A simple reason. Loop is dependent on your CPU cycles, how the gigahertz and all of that is working on your computer. We do not want to update on every gigahertz or at that particular time. We want to update on every time being passed onto a real clock. And you do not need to be worried much about that because we have got for all the classes for that. Now there is one NSTimer class and we can create object from that class. Now notice how easy it is for you to understand how the objects is being created. We automatically can find out that NSTimer is a class by even looking at the syntax. So this is the power of moving around from a step-by-step process. We learned the Swift, now we are moving ahead. So NSTimer class is being done. Now we also need one more thing, that is simply show timer or show time value variable, which is right now going to be 0. We will start from the 0. Now we need a function that is being called for every time. For that we need to define a function. Now this function will not do much out there. We can call it anything. I would like to call it as a time setter. Now any name you can give it to that. And inside that I would like to do a couple of things only. First of all, I would like to have my show time value, and it is going to be equal to show time value, not with that, a space, otherwise it is going to complain to me. And we would like to add a 1 to it. That's it, nothing much fancy. Also, I would like to update my label. Now it is a time display label. Again, it should be a time display. I made it as a Tim display. Again, really bad of me, but don't do that. And I would like to change the text value of it. Now there are a couple of ways to change the text. I would like to go with the way of string interpolation. Now go ahead and find out what are the other ways you can do with that. And I would like to just update it with the show time value. So I would like to call my function at every interval of 1 second. And once I call this function, it updates the value of the show time and displays that on the screen. So that is quite easy. Now let's move on to the play button. Now this is here where the things are going to get a little bit tricky. Not that much, but a little bit. So we have created an object of NSTimer class and I would like to access a property for that. So I'll call it as time is equals to, now calling a property of NSTimer. I would like to have a dot and it's suggesting me to. Now if it doesn't suggest you, just make sure you type a couple of words for scheduled timer with time interval. And there are 2 variations for that, first one and the second one. Now which one you need? Now you need the second one which says, which is there with the selector. Now notice the first one is not with the selector. The second one is with the selector. Now why we need a selector? Now simply I have gone ahead and looked into the documentation. Selector is able to call a function on a fixed interval of time. So that is why we need that. I'll select this and it says what is the time interval you want to change on that or call the function. Like you can skip a 1 second, 5 second, or maybe you want to call it even an hour, but I would like to call it every second. Now next it says what is your target. My target is self. Now I'm just having the function in my self class, so I'll just call it as a self. Now here it's called as selector. Now inside the selector I would like to have this guy out here. Now I would like to call this as a simple selector. So let's just have a selector, and I would call my function inside that. So my function is time setter, and how you call your function is simply wrapping it around just like a string. Now you do not pass these pair of parentheses and all of that. Now this is the syntax you will find around looking into the documentation, but do not hesitate. I'll be there with you. I'll explain everything. Right now we are just trying to build an app and we are trying to grab a new concept. And then we need a user info. Right now, no, it is a nil. And Boolean, yes, of course, that is why here we are doing so much of pain right now for that. I'll save that. Okay, good so far. Now defining a pause functionality. Now pause functionality is a little bit awkward and you will find really it funny. Now what I can do for that, I'll simply call time dot, and after the dot I can simply call invalidate, and that's it. Now the name is a little bit weird and a lot of people don't like it, but still this is what we have. And again, in the stop also, I can call the time dot invalidate, and that's it. But we would also like to do one more thing in the stop. We would like to reset the label to the 0. So I'll call it as a showtime value is going to be, or simply the showtime. Not like that. We would like to have a label first of all. What's the name of that label? Tim display. How can I forget my mistake out there? So Tim display, and we want to access the .text, and it doesn't matter what the user we are presenting to the user, whether it's a string 0 or is it just a simple integer 0. It doesn't really matter to the user. And okay, good so far. Now we want to jump onto the main storyboard and quickly check this guy, and I would like to select it, open my this guy, and I would like to have the text as a 0. Okay, good so far. Now let's run this and try to see whether we have succeeded or have failed miserably. And it's just taking a couple of moments to open up the simulator. So here is our iPhone loaded up after a little while and opening up our app. Still taking a minute. So here is our app and we can see that it loads quite nicely. Let's check it out onto the flat mode. Yes, it looks good. And checking back on that. Yes, it looks good. Play button, and here it says 1, 2, 3 and ticker had started. Thanks to God for it. And we can pause that. And can I play it again? And yes, it works. And can I stop it? If I click on that, yes, it sets to 0 right now. So our runner is ready and we can simply hit the play button, and as soon as we finish the line, we can stop. Now you could have done one more thing. Instead of stopping that onto a 0, you could have displayed whatever the last number is, and there could be one more reset button for that. Again, it's a simple exercise for you to put a reset button at the top, and what should it does? When the stop button should exactly stop it onto the any number where it is. Like the pause button right now here, it should be a stop button, and the reset button should stop that. Now I hope it is a really simple exercise, but in addition to that, what you have to do, you have to put a small image out there. Now download any lightning icon or maybe your favorite Flash character for that. So download that from any website or Google out there, and make sure that you put it out there and try to apply a little bit of constraints of there. I know you will be failing for applying that, but that is what I want to you. Now, obviously, I put a lot of questions in your head, why there was a square icons, why you haven't discussed the constraints and all of that, but still, we have completed our thirst of building one of the app. And still, you can see that there was a huge difference between building the app in the module 1 and this module. Okay, quite a lot of talk. Now let's again get back onto the basics.